Good afternoon. My name is Julia Nussbaum. Today I'm going to review with you human ecological theory. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation, and I hope you enjoy. Now let's get started. We're going to talk about human ecological theory. Let's start with an overview of this theory. Human ecological theory is a systems perspective that focuses on the interactions and interdependence of humans and their environment. This theory recognizes that humans should be viewed in the context of their environment. It states that both humans and their environments are influenced and changed by one another. And when you have time, you can take a look at this YouTube video. I provided a link here for you. We're going to go through the history of this theory. This theory has been around for a really long time. Ernest Haeckel proposed the need for a science that would study organisms in their environments in 1873. He did not call it ecology, though. He called it oikology. He never developed the science, however. Then Ellen Swallow Richards did develop the science. She did develop this as a study of the environment with an emphasis on home and family, and she publicly introduced it in 1892. Robert Wolcott and C.B. Shreve founded the Ecological Society of America in 1916. Robert E. Park and Ernest W. Burgess accepted human ecology in the field of sociology in the early 1920s. More recently, Beatrice Paolucci and Hook published an article in 1970 which was titled "The Family is an Ecosystem." This article highlighted several concepts that help with applying this theory to family studies. Then, of course, the most well-known contributor to the theory is Urie Bronfenbrenner. He envisioned a person's environment as systems which were nested within one another, and they concentrated on child development. He continued to develop this theory over his entire career, and in 2005, he replaced the term ecology with bioecology. Here you can see a figure depicting Bronfenbrenner's systems that are nested within each other. You see the child or the individual in the center. Then you have the microsystem, which is the environment that is closest to the child. Then you have the mesosystem, which is outside of the microsystem. The exosystem, which would include extended family, friends and neighbors, parents' workplace. And then even further out, you have the macrosystem, which is culture, values, laws, and customs. The one thing you don't see in this depiction is the chronosystem. And the chronosystem was the notion of time. Development within an individual and within the environment, it occurs throughout the entire life course. So this development has to be looked at in relation to history and what's happened over a person's lifetime. So there could be events in that lifetime that have impacted them, such as a divorce or a death in the family, things of that nature that have taken place throughout a person's lifetime that could have impacted them. Now we'll go through some of the basic assumptions of this theory. The first is that human beings and groups are a product of both genetics and their environment. And again, there's a YouTube video that you can watch on your own time. But this basically is stating that, for example, I may be genetically predisposed to something, and that may impact my development, but my environment can also influence the genetic predisposition. So, for example, I may be genetically predisposed to having asthma. And I may live in a house where everyone smokes, and I may develop asthma. I may have another child you could look at who has the same genetic predisposition as I do. However, they live in a house where no one smokes and they do not develop asthma. So that's basically what this is looking at. Human beings are products of both. It's not one or the other. They both influence each other and influence the development. Humans are dependent upon their environment to meet their biological needs. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, we need our environment to meet biological needs such as growing food, breathing air, drinking water, things of that nature. And as social beings, humans are dependent on others. No one wants to be alone all of the time, although sometimes I think I would like to for just a little while. Humans are finite, so time is a limitation and a resource. You know, we only live for so long, so we are limited in what we can do because we can run out of time before we can finish all the things we'd like to do in our lifetime. Humans organize their interactions within their spatial environments. For example, humans will plan the roadways downtown of a city, how they're laid out, where stores are, where things are. So things in my interaction are organized with where I choose to go that day, which road I take, which sidewalk I walk down, etc. Human behavior can be comprehended on at least two levels, the individual level and the population level. So you can always look at how a single individual person behaves and reacts to things, but then you can also look at the larger picture and look at how an entire population behaves or reacts to things in their environment. And with that, let's just take a minute and do a brief activity. You don't have to do anything hard. I'm just going to ask you to think about this. If you want to write it down, you can. If you want to do it later, that's fine. So just take a minute and think about yourself and your siblings, if you have any. If you don't have any siblings, maybe think about two siblings that you know, or two people that were raised in the same or similar circumstances, and then answer the following questions. How similar were their upbringings? How similar are these people now? Do they have similar attitudes? Do they have similar temperaments? And you can think of probably hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but several stories where you know people that were raised in the exact same environment. Maybe they're brothers and sisters, maybe they're just people who had lived in the same thing. You know, maybe a parent passed away when they were young, maybe their parents didn't work and they were really, really poor, or maybe they were both extremely wealthy and had everything they could ever want. One of them turns out to be a successful, happy, wonderful person, and the other one may be a drug addict. It's just how different people can come out. Maybe it was something that happened, maybe it's just their genetics, maybe it's the combination of both. Now let's go through the primary terms and concepts. First, we're going to look at human ecosystem, organism that operates as a unit in interaction with its environment. Niche is a place that exists within a human ecosystem. And for an example, I put up a little picture here about an ecological niche, the dung beetle. They live in an ecosystem. They have their own little niche in that ecosystem. They're the only people that do this. They're the only people that take care of the dung, and that is their niche. Environment, that is all things that are surrounding a human being. Ontogenetic development is the biological or genetic part of development. Adaptation, this is the way humans change their systems in order to accommodate and or alter their environments. Needs are requirements for survival and adaptation. And then values, which are human appraisals of what is desirable, worthwhile, and proper. Some more primary terms and concepts. management, all processes around acquisition, distribution, and utilization of resources that are needed to attain your human goals. Decision making, recognizing when a decision is needed, identifying, analyzing, and evaluating alternatives, choosing an alternative. Human development, how maturing people perceive their environment, differentiate themselves from their environment, and behave in relation to their environment. And quality of human life and quality of environment is determined by how the basic needs are met and how goals are attained. Now we'll look at some of the different applications of this theory. So, due to the broad scope of this theory, it isn't always used in its entirety. Sometimes people will pull out parts of the theory and only use that for research. And this is some examples of that. So some people will use microsystem and environmental interactions. Sipsma, Bielo, Cole-Lewis, and Kershaw in 2010 conducted a study of intergenerational cycle of adolescent fatherhood. They applied this theory, and it appeared that individual variables interact with family variables and to increase the likelihood of an adolescent becoming a father. This increase in likelihood and risk behaviors is explained by the interactions of the microsystems that they reviewed. Then you have ecological systems theory, which is usually used for program developments and interventions. It's been used to understand how the ecology of immigrant families can help strengthen social work service delivery. That's one of the studies that's been done. And they will look at the environment, obviously, using this theory and applying it, and the interaction and interrelation of the immigrant families, as well as their environment, just to understand what they can do to strengthen delivering those social work services that are available for these families. And then the process, person, context, time model of this theory. Now, this is some of Bronfenbrenner's later works. He introduced this PPCT model. In 1995, he encouraged the simultaneous investigation of the variability in developmental processes as a function of process, person, context, and time. He talked about proximal processes. They were enduring patterns of interaction, particularly within parent-child and child-child activities. Examples of that would be like group and solitary play, reading, and learning new skills. And while engaging in these activities, children would then make sense of their world and their place within their world. And then he goes on to talk about how a person denotes in this, that's the process, the first part I was just speaking of. Then the person part of it denotes the personal characteristics, so the biological characteristics that an individual carries into any social interaction or situation. And there were three types of personal characteristics. You had demand characteristics, which were age, gender, personal appearance, skin tone. That's an immediate stimulus, something that when somebody sees you, they immediately notice. You have resource characteristics, which are mental and emotional characteristics. So the skills that you have, how smart you are, your intelligence level. You have force characteristics. This is differences in motivation. Are you highly motivated? Are you not motivated? Are you very persistent? What's your temperament? And then context. And the context basically is the environment. And it represents the four nested environments that were outlined earlier in his earlier theories, which were microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. And then time represents the constancy and change for the individual and the environments. So micro time would represent what's happening during a specific activity, and mesotime is the degree to which the activities occur with some regularity. So that's a little bit more. This model is very complicated, and again, it was the latest refinement of his models of the theory. It's not often used in the field due to the complexity of it, and also because it is relatively new. So it isn't used that often. However, it has been used to conduct a couple of studies, and one was to study the role of poverty on child outcomes. So there has been some benefit. Some things have come from this model of the theory. It's just relatively new as far as theories go, and because of the complicated layout of it, it just hasn't been used that much. Now let's just do a quick comparison of human ecological theory and biosocial theory. So human ecological theory states that humans are influenced by genetics and their environment. Biosocial theory states that humans have evolved over time due to genetic adaptations. So there is similarity here, and you'll see as we go through the other two bullets that I have listed under each theory. The biggest difference is the way these two theories sort of look at the environment and the genetics and how they influence development, or the human development. So again, you can kind of see in the way this is worded, under the ecological theory, humans are influenced by genetics and their environment. So I'm going to grow to be the kind of person I am due to my genes and due to the environment in which I grow up in. Biosocial theory looks at this kind of in a bigger picture, I guess would be the right way to say that, where humans have evolved over time due to the genetic adaptations to their environment. So while it does seem similar, it's just a different view of that development. The second bullet point, and you'll see kind of the same thing, a person is the center of many subsystems that make up their environment. So you have a person in the middle. If you think back to that depiction of Bronfenbrenner that I had up earlier that showed the microsystem, the mesosystem, et cetera, a person is in the center, and all of these subsystems make up their environment. Biosocial theory says that humans are genetically predisposed to some things, and this influences how they interact within the family. So I have one person in the middle, family around me. I'm genetically predisposed to some trait. Maybe it is being really quiet, not talking a lot. That is going to interact and influence the way I interact with the rest of my family. And that will influence how they interact with me. It will change things, and it will influence the environment that we're living in. So then the third bullet point, human ecological theory says that environment will impact the development. The biosocial theory says physiological adaptations will vary depending on the environment. So again, you can see some similarities here. I feel like the biggest difference between these two theories is human ecological theory is focused on what is happening today in a person's development. So things in my environment are going to impact my development, just like my genetics are. And the biosocial theory is looking more at how we evolve years down the road. So if you think about Darwin and his theory of evolution, how things change to fit their environment, genes evolved and mutated and changed over hundreds and thousands of years, so that different forms of life could live and survive and thrive in their environment. So I think it basically looks at different time time concepts. They both believe that there is a genetic influence and an environmental influence on the way people interact with each other and with their environment, and the way they grow and change. I think it's looking at just different time periods and different sort of a bigger picture in the biosocial theory, and the human ecological theory is looking more at that specific individual development. And I want to thank you all for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I enjoyed going through this theory. I thought it was very interesting. I hope you'll take the time to look at the YouTube clips that I added into the presentation and take a look at those. And again, thank you and have a great day.